As of writing this, we are 11 episodes into Dragon Ball Daima, the newest anime in the series. I've watched all of them, and I'm really liking all the new stuff explored in this anime. However, 8 episodes in, I spotted a potential problem with this new show. It's a problem that's been in the franchise for longer than some might realize. And with episodes 9 through 11, it seems like Daima won't be able to escape it either. Now, to fully explain this, I need to go into spoilers for the most recent episodes. So if you're interested in this new anime and haven't watched it yet, you might want to do that. Despite what I'm going to be saying shortly, Daima is a strong entry with minor quirks scattered throughout. That being said, let's recap for the sake of context. Dragon Ball Daima, set presumably in a separate continuity from Super and taking place shortly after the end of the Buu saga. Goku and his friends have been turned into children with the Dragon Balls by the current Demon King Goma. So now it's off to the Demon Realm to stop him, rescue their friend Dende, and revert to their original forms using this world's own set of Dragon Balls. There are only 3 of them, but each one is protected by a powerful guardian. Goku is also accompanied by new allies in addition to the usual ones, like the demons Pansy and Glorio. Now, plot-wise, it isn't mind-blowing, but what makes it stand out is the amount of world building and fleshing out for the demon realm. How it works, how the demons live, it even answers several questions about the Supreme Kai and his own species. This becomes important because his siblings are actually working for Goma. I'm not going to mention how its lore seems to be in direct contradiction with Dragon Ball Super, that's its own can of worms. I'd rather not get into that right now. For the most part, the strength of Daima was to explore a completely new avenue, rather than just mimicking the classics for easy fan service. I mean, they do spend 7 minutes recapping the Buu saga, but that's different. I mean that the plot or scenes unique to this anime aren't derivative of previous ones. But then comes episode 8. This is Dr. Arinsu, one of the new characters and a relative of the Supreme Kai. She's conspiring against the Demon King and has a whole scheme of her own, including, but not limited to, using Glorio to guide Goku and company to the Dragon Balls. Since they are strong enough to defeat the Guardians, or Tamagamis, it's easier to let them gather the Dragon Balls and then have Glorio hand them over. That's so exciting! We haven't had a scheme like that for a long time. There's also Marba, who is revealed to be the true creator of Majin Buu. Up until now, we've been told that Bibidi made Buu, but he merely told Marba to do it and then took the credit. Insert here joke about AI artists. Now, this doesn't change a lot about the Buu saga, but it does retroactively help explain why Buu was so hard to control even by Bibidi. He wasn't its original creator. Okay, so far so good. But there's one more component of Arinsu's master plan. She uses a fragment of Majin Buu to create 2 more Majin Buus, which are part Cybermen?
Oh, no, not that. Just come on.
I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't work like that, but I don't know, it just reminds me of this video.
I consist of all the biological makeup of each and every one of you. Krillin, Vegeta, Goku, Frieza.
Including Yamcha.
Okay, so in my opinion, this is a problem. Even though Daima already has a whole platoon of new villains with their own extensive lore, it had to introduce these 2 new threats that are intentionally derivative of a classic one, even down to using mostly the same gags and humor. Oh, and did I mention their names are Majin Ku and Majin Du? Having 2 of them with distinct personalities is something, but people are already theorizing that they will combine in some way to create one super powerful Majin Buu, because, you know, that's exactly what happened last time. And even if they don't do that, it doesn't change that you literally retconned who created Majin Buu just to have them create 2 more Majin Buus in the service of a final fight that is somewhat reminiscent of the fight against Majin Buu. Okay, so the next episode came out while I was editing, so I'm gonna have to account for that as well. I'm just going to watch the entirety of the episode and change my script accordingly. Okay, that was pretty epic. Doesn't affect my argument though. Let's move on. You have an entire new world, scratch that, 3 new worlds at your disposal, with extensive backstories on demons and clients. Why bend over backwards for something intentionally derivative of your own work from 30 years ago? A saga which, no offense, it wasn't all that great to begin with. Okay, that sounds pretty mean. I swear I genuinely want to enjoy this series, but this isn't the first time it happens. This is a trend that's been going on for years. So many storylines in this series are trying to copy each other, and at a certain point, it just takes you out of it. Keep in mind, right before Daima, we had the superhero movie, where you introduced these 2 new androids made by the Red Ribbon Army, the guys who created Cell. But then the final fight, it's just another Cell, but bigger, I guess? Yeah, his name is Cell Max. I guess Cell 2 was taken. And also, Gohan has a new transformation because, well, he transformed when he fought against Cell the first time. He needs to do it again. This was, to my knowledge, the biggest criticism of the movie. That the end just contorts itself to imitate an iconic scenario in the hopes that fans would go crazy about it. But wait, what about the manga? Well, in the same year that we got Cell Harder vs Gohan Harder, the Granola arc was just about wrapping up and preparing to go on hiatus. There's been this entire journey through the past and present of Granola, this mysterious bounty hunter who gives away his own lifespan to have his wish granted and take revenge on the culprits who wiped his planet, to him meeting Goku and Vegeta, now reborn as this strategic but inexperienced powerhouse, who in the heat of battle gets carried away and defaces the ruins of his own people, to him seeing the terror of a civilian and thinking back to his own mother, realizing for a moment what he's become, and then his connection with Bardock and this entire backstory that proves to him how Saiyans are capable of nobility and kindness. Then this gear change to stopping the heaters and Gas's own curse to remain the strongest at the cost of his own youth. And of course, the moment where Goku puts his trust into Granola, playing support for him so Granola can take the final blow. Our protagonist acknowledging that this isn't his fight to finish, and he places his bets on the survivor saved by his own father. But it isn't enough quite yet. And then Frieza just drops in, teases his new transformation, knocks out everyone and leaves. This entire arc's conclusion has Frieza come out of nowhere and beat everyone in less than a full chapter. Are you starting to see the pattern? That's 2, potentially 3 main entries in the series, back to back, where new characters and elements are thoroughly explored just to then fall back on what's familiar for the sake of nostalgia. Now, bear with me. I commented this to someone IRL, and I remember them saying something along the lines of, "It's just like modern Star Wars. They have an entire galaxy to create new stories with, but keep repeating what was popular." That made me pause, and got me thinking. It's not a modern writer's issue, is it? Dragon Ball's always had a thing for bringing back past enemies. In GT, there was like an entire arc where every villain who died broke out of hell. But was there something different about the way they did it back then? Did this series ever struggle with this before the end of Super? Or dare I say, before the end of Dragon Ball Z? The answer is... kind of... not really, but most of you probably already know there's a lot of movies in the franchise. And across so many of them, there's the same theme of slight mimicry and recycling bits and pieces as part of a mostly original or distinct story. Some are more blatant than others. Dead Zone, the first of the C movies, has some beats from the Raditz episodes sprinkled throughout. Gohan getting kidnapped, Goku and Piccolo teaming up, Gohan's bout of rage at the end, but there's quite a lot of new stuff added in between, so it's not too blatant just yet. The World's Strongest has an original premise, but the final fight against Wheelo directly recreates the one against Vegeta. At least with the Kaioken x4, I was supposed to put in the clip where he says it, but he actually doesn't say it in the movie, so I didn't want to cheat. Kamehameha, followed by a Spirit Bomb that almost doesn't work. The Tree of Might starts off strong. The Crusher Core want to grow a tree that can suck a planet's energy through its soil and focus it into a fruit that'll make him super powerful. Who's their leader? An evil Saiyan, who looks exactly like Goku. Again, different execution, but with previously used bits and pieces scattered throughout. Lord Slug is about an evil Namekian who uses the Dragon Balls to become young again and briefly takes over the planet. This is now the third time a Namekian uses the Dragon Balls from Earth and tries to rule the world. Cooler's revenge is just Frieza, but cooler. It's about Frieza's brother coming to Earth with a small team of weirdos and then Goku going Super Saiyan to defeat him. And if that was too original for you, the sequel has a robot Cooler trying to take over Namek.
Frieza did it.
Excuse you?
The robot thing. Frieza did it. When he came back to Earth.
But that's not the same.
After he took over Namek, like you are now.
Side note, I don't dislike Cooler as a character. I love his badass design. But he was only ever used as a replacement for Frieza. If Frieza is Metal Sonic, Cooler is Mecha Sonic. Super Android 13 is about two androids terrorizing a city, followed by another android who needs to absorb their cores to reach their final form. I love that this last one has so little plot that the only way that it reaches quote-unquote movie length is because they don't use Super Saiyan for like the first, 20 minutes. So now we have this whole pattern of reheating and remixing like some wish-granting Ouroboros that's kind of been there for decades, and with the most recent entries has become pretty hard to ignore. There is potential in most of these storylines, but even when C was still ongoing, there was some kind of push towards repetition, like a constant push, almost like it was an intentional, calculated decision. But to what end? Now, I don't think people who worked on the movie said much about this, but I did find an interview with Toriyama, rest in peace, where he says, quote, "I take the movies as stories in a different dimension from the main story of the comics." Aside from confirming that the C movies weren't canon, he also clarifies that the people at Toei would come up with a project draft and plot before involving him. Now, if I were a cynical man, I could end the video right here. If the studio is the one at fault, they're cheap and lazy, they push out movies with repeated plots because it's easy, we live in a society. But I wasn't fully satisfied with that answer. Then, I started coming across several comments saying that this repetition was originally intentional so that fans wouldn't have to watch the show strictly and could instead enjoy these movies as an alternative, a plan B of sorts if they can't watch it through TV. I don't think it's been confirmed, but it does make some sense. These movies usually came out around the same time as ongoing sagas and were presented at film festivals first, rather than being broadcasted or sold right away. It would make sense for Toei specifically to realize, hey, we need a way to present these plots at film festivals too. This theory is actually strengthened by the first ever Dragon Ball movie, Curse of the Blood Rubies. Despite having new villains, the premise is a condensed alternate version of Pilaf's arc, with near identical scenes and even some of the same jokes, but shortened to movie length. Watching Curse of the Blood Rubies is kinda like watching an official abridged version of the first couple episodes. And you know what? If that's how things worked back then, I can respect it. Also, in the movie, there's this girl named Pansy, exactly like the one in Daima. I don't think it's intentional, I just find it kinda curious. Now, do I think that explanation extends to and justifies the same trend with modern Dragon Ball? Now, for two reasons. One, the way people consume media has changed a lot. Anime movies aren't exclusive to film festivals, modern audiences are used to long-spanning continuities, and anyone who isn't previously familiar with the series has the internet. It's no longer necessary to create plots that are replacements of existing plots. Second, most of these modern entries are either advertised as new adventures or canon to the main storyline. These are original stories meant to be watched in a linear fashion. I mean, for God's sake, the Black Frieza shit and the superhero arc take place back to back in the manga. My issue with these new entries and them finishing off with a derivative final fight or creating a bizarro copy of a classic villain is that it's an active choice now, and it feels so diametrically opposed to the stories they exist in. Superhero didn't need to end with a bigger, badder Cell and a Gohan that's as close as we can get to his teen Super Saiyan 2 self. But either Toei or Toriyama or whoever decided that was gonna be the resolution. Just as a hypothetical, imagine for a second if instead of Cellmax being the secret super weapon, that the Gamma androids had a secret fusion mechanic. And just as they're about to talk things out, Magenta forces the two of them to fuse against their will, and he uses the computer they were created with to instruct this fusion. Kill Gohan and Piccolo. And we see it pushing back a bit, forced to obey but almost reluctant, with two voices begging to be split. The heroes need to find a way to unfuse this villain without hurting it and without putting the two people inside at risk. Or imagine if Arinsu's plan in Daima wasn't to create some recolored boob Cyberman things, but to make her own magic much stronger, or even to use the Tamagamis after the Dragon Balls have been taken in order to turn them rogue. A resolution like that could, on top of being action-packed and exciting, also feel refreshing and surprising. But maybe that's just me. I'm sorry if this video has been overly negative, it's just that Dragon Balls always felt like one of those things where you gotta lower your expectations way down, and Daima seemed like it would break that in every regard. I still love it for the most part, but I don't want to see more reheated villains to cap off these original and new plots. But hey, if you enjoy those movies and those final battles, that's perfectly fine. I've obviously left out a lot of movies and arcs that aren't so derivative. Even if there's a worrying amount of Friezas and Cells and Majin Boos, you still have some pretty strong entries. And I think that's the note I'm gonna end this video on. Happy New Year, everyone. By the way, I watched a bunch of the movies for this video, and can I just say, Mystical Adventure is just weird. It's like 50% Crane School, 50% Red Ribbon Army Saga, but Blue and Shen are working for Chaozu, who is now Emperor, and he misses his wife?
Our men have searched far and wide for your wife without finding so much as a clue to her whereabouts. We fear that whoever kidnapped Her Highness may have already taken her beyond the borders of your kingdom.
I miss my wife, Tails. I miss her a lot.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what to say here.